So now we will be discussing upon lookups. Now first of all, let's understand what are lookups, why do we require a function known as lookup, and how does it help us in order to do certain tasks with respect to data in Excel. Now let me help you understand that. Imagine that I have a big table. I have a very huge table, and in that there are lots of information. Let's say this data is related to employees, and in that employees table there is employee name, there is employee ID, the department from where the employee belongs, the region from where he resides, and as well as the salary of the employee. Now I want to find out details of a particular employee. Now when I am going to find out details of a particular employee, obviously we will do an approach of doing control F, that is finding that particular employee and then getting the required details as such. For an example, if I show you, imagine that this is a table from where I want to find out the salary of OV. So what I will preferably do, I have name of the employees, I have address, I have salary. I'll do control F, that find what I want to find, OV, that's the name of the employee, and I'll do enter, and you could see that OV, this is the OV details, and what is the salary? This is the salary amount which is there. Let's say I want to find out for another employee. Imagine it's Jeevan. So when I search for it and I do enter, you could see that yes, Jeevan's salary is available over here. So I will just copy it and paste it over here. I'm finding it for Jeevan. But don't you think so that when the table is small, this approach is fine? And every time I want to search some value, every time I want to find some value, obviously I'm doing control F, writing down that value, and with respect to that the respective elements are being fetched, copy and copy pasted. But this approach is not so much fruitful for us accordingly. If we want to do this approach dynamically in terms of Excel, so we will be using certain functions known as lookup. Now the basic meaning of lookup. What is the meaning of lookup? Lookup means look for a value, that is search for a value. So when I talk upon lookup as a function, so lookup as a function is categorized in order to look or search for any reference value which I want to find out. So I will obviously search for certain values which I need to find from my data, and of that particular value, what do I want to return? I want to return, as you saw that I wanted to return the salary. So if it's data related to some other information such as student in the given image, you can see that I want to return the grade of the student which was there. So obviously here I am trying to search for certain value, I am trying to look for certain value. Now this looking of an element, searching of an element needs to be dynamically handled in Excel. So in order to do this approach, Excel has lots of functions created for the same. Now we will be seeing one by one for them. The very first function, as the name suggests, is lookup, that is for the search. Now the benefits of lookup is it searches data both vertically and horizontally. Now what does that mean? Now when the table is in vertical alignment, now what's in vertical alignment table? That imagine that you have rows of the data horizontally aligned and columns of the data vertically aligned. That's what we know, that this is the format of a table. And if that format of table is available, that's a vertical alignment of data. So when the data is in that column, that is called as a vertical table, or else your columns could be horizontally aligned and your rows could be vertically aligned. That's a vice versa of the initial version which we saw. So if that kind of data is available, then we call it as a horizontal table. So when I talk upon looking for a data, referring for a data, or searching for a data with respect to lookup, there is no such restriction that you have to search for a vertical table, you have to search for an horizontal table. You can take help of both of them. So here, and it allows from left to right, right to left, which means from first column to the last column, from last column to the first column. You could do those changes which are required, and you don't need to select the entire table over here. Now what does that mean? That the entire table range needs not to be selected. You can select one particular column and that's it. You'll get certain values in the outcome. But whenever we are performing lookup or search related operations with the help of lookup options available in Excel, one thing or the primary importance part required over here is first, that's the lookup value. Now what's a lookup value? Lookup value is what you're trying to search for, or the element you're trying to search. As you can see in the image, the lookup value which I have is 80. Now what's 80? 80 is a lookup value, that is I'm using 80 to search the data. As I showed you in an example earlier with the help of Control F. What was the lookup value for me? It was first OV, then it was G1. That is nothing but the name of the employee. So that's my lookup value, that value I'm going to search in a bigger table which we have. So we need something called as lookup value, which means the value which we will use to search. So we need something called as lookup value, that is the value used for searching. Now obviously the value which we are using for searching would be available somewhere in the actual table which we have, that is a bigger table which we have from where we are going to search. So we have something called as lookup vector. Now what's a lookup vector over here? Lookup vector is a column. Lookup vector is a column from where I will search for the lookup value. Which means if you can see in the example, my lookup value is 80 and that lookup value in the actual table would be searched in which column? In the score column. So that score column information, all the list of elements, all the range of cells in the score column is my lookup vector. So lookup vector is the column or range of cells. The column or range of cells where lookup value would be found. So the column or range of cells where the lookup value would be found is my lookup vector. Now after finding that value in the entire table range or in the bigger range, what do I want in the outcome? As you saw over here, I wanted the grade. That's my result which I require in the outcome. So in the example which we saw with Control F, what do I require over there? I required the salary. So for that value of lookup, when I am trying to search, what is the value which I wanted to show in the outcome? That's nothing but my result vector. So what's a result vector over here? Result vector is the value which you want to search when a lookup value is being found. So the outcome of the search, the outcome of the searching element, the outcome of the search is nothing but my result vector. So this is how a lookup works, where we have three important aspects. The very first is my lookup value, the value which I will use to search. There is a lookup vector from where it would be searched, and then there is a result vector, which means the result or the outcome which would be generated once the value is being searched or found. So this is how a lookup works. Now let's try to see how does it implements. So if I go in the table which I was using, let's say the salary was being created for G1. If I do Control F, it was becoming difficult for me. in order to find out Jeevan's salary. So let's try to do with the help of lookup which we saw. So if I do equals to and I type in what? Lookup. Now looks for a value either from one row or from one column, which means the value which you are trying to search, it could be available in a range of rows or it could be available in the range of columns, which means that the benefits of lookup that it is seeing or searching the data from the vertical table, also from the horizontal table. So I'll choose lookup and provided for backward compatibility. Now let's understand what does it mean. So I've selected the lookup function. You can see there are two options, that lookup value, lookup vector and the result vector which we saw. And then there is something called as lookup value and lookup array. Let's try to look from both of them. So the lookup value over here is what? It's Jeevan. So in the cell, I'm not writing the value as such because it will be a static value. So I'm selecting a cell where this value is being found. So I've written this cell, that is H9, is having this value which I want to look, which I want to search into my table. Now where do I want to search this value? Now lookup vector. Now what is a lookup vector? Lookup vector is a column where the lookup value would be found. So as you see, Jeevan is the name of the employee. Where it would be found? It would be found in this range. So I'll do Control Shift and down arrow key in order to select the range, which means I am having the lookup value, I am having the lookup vector, that this value would be found over here. And what is the result vector? Result vector means after finding a match over here, what do I want to show in the outcome or return in the outcome? So that's the result of my search, and the result vector over here is this. So when I end it, you could see the salary which has been fetched over here without doing Control F or anything as such, which we saw earlier. So if I change the name of the employee, let's say OV, you could see the salary has been changing. Let's say I change it from Manish. You could see the salary has been changing. Now let's say I have a name. Imagine Ria. Is Ria found over here? If I try to search Control F and Ria, I couldn't find Ria over there itself. There is no other place where this Ria has been found. So if I do find all, you can see it's available in H9 cell, but it's nowhere other else place where it is available. There is no other place where this Ria value is being available. So how does a salary has been extracted over here? One thing to remember, that there is no specification that you want to find out an exact match, you want to find out an approximate match. Now VLOOKUP will understand on itself. If the value which is matching is being found, then the match element, the exact match result vector would be found. But if the match is not appropriate or if the match is not exact, it should ideally throw me what? An error. But do you think so it's throwing me an error? No. So accordingly, according to alphabetical order, where do you think so that Ria would be there? Ria would be after Rahul, correct? But there is no value after Rahul named as Ria. So it has considered Rahul's salary over here, which is 2 lakh. So it has considered Rahul's salary over here, which is 2,30,000. So you could see, now imagine that we have something called as Purva. Now obviously Purvi as a name is not available, but if I see Purvi, you can see the salary of Purva is being fetched. Why? Because Purvi as an exact match was not found. So it is going in the range of cells in the search vector or in the lookup vector, and it is thinking that where a Purvi would be fit in according to alphabetical order. So according to alphabetical order, Purvi would be fit in after Purva, but it's not there. So it is taking the value of Purva over here. So there is no such specification that I can find out an exact match over here. I could if the value is matching, but if the value is not matching for a particular element, you can see that instead of throwing me error, what it is giving me, it is giving me an approx match. Approx match means the nearby value which is being fetched over here. So this is how we saw that how does a lookup works. Now as I said that it's not necessary, let's say I'll write it G1, it's not necessary that you select an entire table. We saw in the example of the lookup which we did earlier that we didn't select the entire table, still the salary was being extracted. But what if I select an entire table and what it is trying to fetch me over here? So I do lookup. Now you can see in this lookup we did the first option, that is lookup value, lookup vector and the result vector which we saw. Now let's try to understand by the next approach, that is lookup value and the array. Array is multiple columns or multiple range of cells, multiple columnar range of cells taken into consideration. Now let's say G1 is still my lookup value over here, and instead of selecting a lookup vector, let me select an entire array. Let me select an entire array, which means the entire range of cells. I've selected that. When I close it and I do OK, you could see the salary of G1. What is the salary of G1? $1,60,000, and the same has been fetched over here. If I do for OV, you could see the salary has been changing, that is $2,61,260. If I check for Prachi, you could see the salaries has been changing. So it was not mandated that initially we didn't select the entire table range, but I didn't even mention that I wanted salary over here. The initial part which we did like this, that I do lookup, that's my lookup value. I want to search this lookup value from here and I want to extract the salary for the same. That's what I did earlier, and it was extracting the salary appropriately. But in the next approach which I did, it was like lookup, the lookup value, and instead of mentioning that I want salary, I selected the entire table. Now how does it understood that I have extracted something called as salary? Because of one part, as you can see that when I was writing lookup, you could see provided for backward compatibility. Now what's a backward compatibility? It is taking the element from the last column which was being selected and searching from the first column which was being used. Let's try to see again. That imagine that I had employee ID as a column over here. Obviously it's not the, let's say 101, 102, and let me drag it. I'll do format painting, this, and I have done the format painting over here, so I have formatted the cells. Now imagine that I want to use lookup and I will select an entire table based on what is the lookup value which I want to search, that's Prachi. So I'll do lookup. I have a lookup value as Prachi. Now instead of selecting the lookup vector and the result vector, I am selecting an entire table right from employee ID. And when I do this, you could see that error is being encountered. We saw initially when the value was not found, the error was not available. But how come this error is coming? The reason that now it is starting the search in the table array. Whenever we select, the search is being started, the search is being extracted, or the value is being started from the entire table, from this particular range, from the first column whenever we select a table array. And you could see there is nothing named as Prachi over here, so there is no lookup value found, and with respect to that the other elements are not being fetched. But let's say if I would have written 102 You could see 102 is for Jeevan and the salary has been extracted for the same. So this is how it works, that you have to be very careful when you are using a lookup function. Over here, let's say I do for OV, and imagine that instead of salary, someone wants me to fetch the address, that where does OV resides. I want to fetch the address. Now if I do lookup, now that's my lookup value, and in the table array I am not selecting from employee ID. I know the lookup value must be there in the first column, so I'm selecting from the name of the employees and I have selected the salary. When I do this, it is fetching me what? Salary. But what do I require over here? I required the address. So how do I mention that I wanted the address, not the salary? So I will do lookup, that's a lookup value, and I can do like this, that this is a lookup vector, and I'll mention that address needs to be fetched. And you can see the address is being fetched for what? For OV. If I change the element, you could see the address being changing. That's with the first option of lookup vector and the result vector. Let's say I'll give a table array. Now I want to select the address. I want the element to be fetched as address. So the table array I'm selecting over here is still this. Because when you select a table array, as you saw earlier, it is returning the value, returning the element of the last column of the table array. So here, if you can see that when I have selected till the address element, the last column value was the address, and address is being fetched for that particular employee. So if I change it to Mahesh, you could see the address being changing over here. Now I wanted address and salary. So I wanted salary as a column. Let's say I'll do a format painting over here. The same, and I wanted the salary. So if I do with the first option of lookup, that's the lookup value and the lookup vector, that from where I'm searching it, and the result vector, I could get the salary, or else I have to use the array approach. Now how does an array approach work? I'll take this and I'll select the entire table. Now remember, the search element, the lookup value is there in the first column, which I am selecting the table array, and it has been there. And you could see salary is being fetched, that is from the last column the element is being fetched. So if I change it, the value is being changed. If I change to Purvi, obviously Purvi is not there, so Purva's element is being found, because alphabetically Purvi would be fetched after Purva. So if I want to find out for, let's say, Kritika, so Kritika is there is no Kritika as an element, so the value of Kritika is being fetched, because Kritika would be placed, if it was there, it would be placed after this particular part. So there is no such approach that I can mention that I want exact match. There is no such approach that I want to fetch an approx match over here. So this is how a lookup works. We saw that what is lookup, how does a lookup works, and how does it generates an outcome. We can do by multiple approaches, that is a lookup value, lookup vector and the result vector, or else the entire table array. But there were certain limitations, that is that if I want to find out for address, I want to do manually the result vector. If I wanted to find out for salary, manually the result vector needs to be analyzed, needs to be understood. So for that particular reason, we are using lookup, but we can also enhance the approach of lookup by using certain other options, certain other approaches which are possibly available for us apart from the lookup. So this was all about lookup as a function.
Like this video, subscribe to our channel and comment on the concept you want to learn next.